Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio, how to survive hidden healthcare and hospital dangers with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rulo. Pat has over 20 years experience as a professional public speaker, and for the next hour, she's going to be your healthcare and hospital survival guide. Each week, you will say, oh, as Pat exposes and explores little-known hospital hazards, delves into the deep waters of dangerous healthcare practices, picks the brains of her good-looking and influential guests, all guaranteed to keep you and your family safe in today's fragmented healthcare system. The Speak Up and Stay Alive radio program is intended to advance health literacy by making you aware of healthcare and hospital dangers. The program is for informational purposes only and is not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem or as a substitute for consulting a licensed medical professional. Participating as a program listener, guest, or caller should not be considered medical advice. References to any entity, product, service, website, or source of information should not be considered as an endorsement. And now your host, Pat Rulo.
I can't bear again no more, baby. I got too much pride. But I'll survive.
Hello, I am Pat Rulo, and I'm so happy to hostess this next hour, where I will serve you a generous helping of everything you need to know to help you and your loved ones stay safe during any doctor or hospital visit. Who am I? I am you. I am every person who has ever been in a hospital or doctor's office and has received less than acceptable treatment. I am you, the person who got an infection during a simple outpatient procedure. I am you, the patient whose questions are ignored, who struggles to speak to the doctor as he or she has one foot out the door. I am the missed heart attack, the hospital-acquired infection, the wrong diagnosis, the unanswered call button. This show is not about pointing a finger at hospitals, doctors, or nurses. It's about you, your family, your friends, and your loved ones. It's about becoming informed of all the hospital hazards, what they are, how and why they happen, and what you can do about them. This show is about empowerment. It's about doing everything you can to stay safe during any and every healthcare encounter. Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio, yes, that's OH, with an exclamation point, will cause you to say, oh, as each week we delve into little-known hospital and healthcare dangers. When you understand why something happens, you are better equipped to do something to change it and prevent it from happening to you. If enough people begin to speak up, together, each of us can alter the current precarious path of today's unsafe healthcare practices. Well, as usual, today's number one show on patient safety is very thoughtfully packed with information that you need to know. And remember, we're not here to scare you, just to prepare you. And now, here's the hospital hazard of the week. Relationships. Sometimes on this show, we talk about medical errors and mishaps that are somewhat out of our direct control. But today, I want to discuss something that we as patients can definitely control, and that is our relationships with our healthcare staff, doctors, nurses, aides, and even the housekeeping and transportation staff within a hospital. What do I mean? Well, think about how many people there are in the hospital on any given day. Thousands and thousands. And who are you? You're the new heart attack in room 202 or the hip replacement in 303. No one knows anything about you, and really, no one seems to care. Is there something we can do about this anonymity? What if you could become someone special, a friend, and not just the irritating call button? Well, if you're not feeling well, you may not be able to do this by yourself, and that's why it's important to have an advocate, someone else with you, someone to make friends with the hospital staff. Well, here's a few ways to stand out, and I mean in a good way. First of all, come prepared with knowledge. The more you know, the less dangerous the place will be. Bring a current list of all medications, allergies, emergency contact numbers, healthcare power of attorney, living will, and so on. You will stand out because, trust me, not many patients do this. Now you will stand out as being a smart patient. Bring a small poster of pictures of you when you're healthy and happy, your spouse, children, grandkids, pets, your garden, anything that allows others to see you as a real person with a real life and not just a faded hospital gown and messy hair. Now, when Nurse Susie asks about the kids in the picture, you can ask Nurse Susie if she has kids or grandkids. And when she tells you about her son's upcoming soccer game, you can inquire the next day about the results. Did Johnny's team win? Find out what matters to them. Find some common ground. Do you both like a certain TV show? Are you both fans of a local sports team? Now you are a friend. You care. They care. And no one wants to hurt a friend. Next, remember people's names and use them often. Everyone loves to hear their name. Keep track of the folks who enter your room. And when someone finishes with a service, thank them. Thank you, Terry the transporter, for getting me to the X-ray department this morning. Thank you, Helen Housekeeper, for wiping down the bathroom. Actually, a phrase that gets a lot of attention is this one. Thank you for helping me. Or thank you for helping us. That is powerful. It stops people. First of all, not many folks are actually thanked. And secondly, people do want to help. So when you phrase it that way, thank you for helping me, it allows the other person to feel important. And you can't get any better than that. And also be sure to preface any request with the word please. As an advocate for a patient, dress respectfully. Look the part of an intelligent, well-informed, and powerful person. Well, these are just a few ideas of ways to stand out in a positive way. You want to create any type of dialogue that separates you from the other folks on your floor. And here's my last and most powerful suggestion as a simple way to start a conversation that shows that you are an informed patient. Bring a copy of my book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, with you to the hospital. The cover stands out as well as the title. I've tried this myself, and if you leave the book on your tray table, everyone who enters looks at it and comments, giving you the perfect opportunity to say, yes, I am concerned about healthcare-acquired infections and patient safety. Now they know that you know what to look out for. And if you bring the patient safety logs with you when the doctor or nurse comes in and asks what medications you currently take, you simply whip out your logs and everything is already documented on these forms, along with any current allergies, contact numbers. I guarantee you not many people come this prepared. This is just another way to stand out in a positive and empowered way. And with that, let's hear some legal news you can use. During my live events, many people ask about long-term care. So I thought I'd get the answer from our resident expert, Pat Schraff, a nice and friendly attorney at Schraff & King, located on Somme Center Road in Willoughby, Ohio. Let's spend 2 minutes with Pat. Welcome to the show, Pat.
It's great to be here.
Pat, tell us, what is long-term care and how do you pay for that?
Long-term care is very much misunderstood. Many people think that long-term care is going to a nursing home for care. But actually, long-term care includes care within your home, in an assisted living facility, perhaps in an adult family home, or care in a nursing home. In order to pay for that, people need to really know what the costs are and how they are going to be paying for that care. There are several ways to pay for the care. First, there's private pay. You can pay the cost yourself. If we're looking at nursing home costs, that may be anywhere from $6,000 a month to $14,000 a month. That cost is a bit beyond the average person's ability to pay. So looking at other options than having to privately pay and perhaps exhaust all of your money and all of your assets, people should take into consideration what else is available to pay for long-term care. First, long-term care insurance. This may not be for everyone, but it is an option to consider. Long-term care insurance will step in and pay the costs of in-home care, assisted living, nursing home care if needed. Long-term care insurance policy can allow people to keep more of their assets than they might otherwise be able to keep. But if people are not able to obtain long-term care insurance, or they do not have the resources to privately pay, then we're looking to other programs that might be available, like veterans benefits through the VA. If you're a veteran who served during a time of war, one program is an aid and attendance program that'll help assist paying for in-home care and assisted living, or may provide benefits for a veteran's nursing home. The primary payer, though, of long-term care is the Medicaid program. Medicaid also provides in-home care, assisted living, and nursing home care, but you must be financially eligible, and this usually means spending your assets down toward the cost of your care. It also involves having few assets and little income to pay for your long-term care.
So if our listeners have further questions about long-term care, how can they go about getting more information about you and Schraff & King?
They can contact us at 440-585-1600 or www.schraffking.com.
Well, thank you for being here today, Pat.
Thank you.
If you or a loved one have any questions about long-term care planning, you'll feel comfortable talking with Pat Schraff, so I encourage you to give her a call. Coming up, our guest has an astounding story to tell about his brother's lack of proper hospital care and how this spurred a new movement called Sorry Works. You need to hear this.
Generation America supports Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Generation America, the smart, conservative, and traditional 50-plus membership organization. Generation America cares what their members think about the issues affecting seniors and ensure their voices are heard. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. If you're looking for quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America, on the right side for seniors. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.
After the show, be sure to visit the website speakupandstayalive.com for more life-saving information. Before a hospital stay pops up unexpectedly in your life, you can purchase the book Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide. It's found exclusively at the website speakupandstayalive.com or is available in person at all of our speaking events. And to help your entire group, organization, business, or church stay safe during any healthcare or hospital experience, invite me to speak. Our presentations are lively, interactive, fast-paced, and about as fun as hospital safety can be. Email us at speakupandstayalive.com or call 440-725-5462. And now, back to the show. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am Pat Rouleau, your hostess, and you know when you tune into this radio program that you will be hearing from some of the most respected authorities in the field of healthcare and hospital safety. And that is why I am happy to have Doug Wojcieszak from Sorry Works with us today. Sadly, Doug and his family have lived through medical malpractice twice, including the death of Doug's brother at age 39 in 1998 from a misdiagnosed heart attack. Like many of us in the patient safety activist field, Doug used his brother's story to launch Sorry Works, which has become the nation's leading training organization dedicated to teaching healthcare, insurance, and legal professionals how to disclose and, when necessary, apologize after something goes wrong in a medical setting. However, Doug saw an unmet need, and that is, how do patients and families know what to do when something goes wrong? What should a patient or family expect after an event? How should they expect to be treated by the doctor, nurses, and hospitals? Should they get a lawyer? How long will they have to wait for resolution to their case? And 1,000 other questions. So recently, Doug launched the campaign to educate patients and families about disclosure, apology, and life after medical errors. The centerpiece of this effort in his book is titled, Did the Doctor Make a Mistake? A guide for patients and families facing complications and possible medical error. So let me welcome Doug Wojcieszak to the show. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today, Doug.
Thanks, Pat. I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and good to be talking to your listeners today. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Doug, what have you seen and heard from patients and families that led you to create this campaign?
Well, as I've done this work over the last 7-8 years of working on disclosure and apology, a lot of our efforts have been aimed at teaching doctors and nurses what to do when something goes wrong, including apologizing if a mistake is proven. However, I've had the opportunity to talk with many patients and families, and it's been sad to me, and it's kind of amazed me sometimes how a lot of patients and families don't know what to do after something goes wrong. Just like a lot of doctors and nurses don't know what to do, a lot of patients and families have no idea what to do. They don't know what to expect. They don't know how to organize their thoughts. They don't know what they should be getting from the doctor, the hospital, the insurance company. A lot of them don't even know how to find a lawyer. So I've seen a great need there, and that's why we've launched this new effort within Sorry Works to educate patients and families, as well as the doctors and nurses we've been educating all along.
And probably the first line of defense is to make sure that you're selecting the proper hospitals and doctors. And so your first chapter is titled Staying Out of Harm's Way. Help us with that.
One of the things I always do when I get asked, is this doctor good, or is this hospital, or is this practice good, a real simple thing to do is go to the courthouse and put the doctor's name in, the practice name, and see what comes up. One or two lawsuits, that not necessarily should deter you. Anybody can make a mistake, and yes, there are sometimes baseless claims made against doctors and practices. We know that's true. But on the flip side, if you see page after page come up naming a doctor or practice in a lawsuit, then you should really be concerned. And I know a lot of my physician friends will tell me that sometimes the very best specialists, the ones who are really good at what they do and they take on a lot of the tough luck cases, they can be sued more oftentimes than not than your regular practitioner. However, if there's pages and pages of lawsuits there showing up on the computer, even if those cases have been tossed out, I've really got some serious concerns about the communication ability, the ability of the doctor, of the practice to be able to build relationships and keep those relationships going after something goes wrong.
And I agree. You even say in your book how we select our doctors and hospitals is different than, say, how we purchase tires, clothing, or any other product or service. So we really need to do our due diligence. Then next you talk about informed consent. Tell us, what is that and why is it important?
Well, it can be the most important discussion you have in your life. It's so important to know the risks going into a particular procedure or a test or a surgery or even a new drug treatment plan, to know what can go wrong. Because I put this as one of the first chapters in the book because I try to make this whole effort to be fair and balanced. Because, if we're going to ask doctors to apologize when they make mistakes, we have to teach patients and families that not every time something goes bad is it malpractice. And unfortunately, too often, patients and families think that every time something goes wrong, it's an error, it's malpractice, and that's just not fair. And the time to learn about these things called known complications or known risks, where the standard of care has not been breached, is before you do a test, before you do a surgery or procedure. Have an honest discussion with a doctor and find out what can go wrong and ask those tough questions. What can go wrong here, doctor? What's the greatest risk? What can happen to me? And if you're not comfortable with those risks, then ask for a second opinion. Or if the doctor is really pushing a certain procedure that does have risks, ask him or her to explain to you why the positives outweigh the negatives. And when a known complication or a known risk happens, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. And I think having these pre-event discussions where you go through all the things that go wrong, if one of these things does go wrong and it's not the doctor's fault, I think that can make life a little easier for everybody on the backside downstream.
Absolutely. So up front, we should know what the risks are and go in with our eyes open and know what those complications can be. So let's say, though, that we do experience a negative event. What should we do and what shouldn't we do?
Well, I think there's several things to think about. First, it's okay to experience your emotions. I'll never forget the phone call from my mom saying, "Douglas, your brother is with Jesus," and it just floored me, and I just fell on the floor and started sobbing. And it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be even a little bit dramatic. It's okay to share your feelings with the doctors and nurses and let them know exactly what you're experiencing. The one thing we tell patients and families, however, in the book and the campaign we've launched is it's not okay to be violent. It's not okay to threaten violence or to make the doctors and nurses feel like their safety is threatened in any way, shape, or form by interacting with you. Because if you go there, if you start throwing yourself on the floor, punching the wall, swearing like a sailor, the doctors and nurses understandably are going to pull back from you. And the avenues for reconciliation and healing on both sides are going to shut down. Going beyond that, you need to look for empathy and concern and compassion from the doctors and nurses. You need to see if they're going to promise you a review, that this thing's going to be investigated to figure out what happened. You're going to need to see they're going to take care of your immediate needs, including any medical needs. If your family members survive the event, addressing those medical needs appropriately and immediately, and just starting the process. On the patient or family side, we encourage you to keep records, to exchange contact information with the hospital. Both sides need to be able to contact each other. Think of your needs and ask for help. And really the big theme that we put in this booklet and the entire campaign, whenever you have an event, treat it like a customer service situation. No different than any other type of service problem you might have out there as a consumer. Treat the situation no different. I understand the stakes are definitely going to be higher, but treat it like a customer service situation. It's okay to be upset, but keep your wits about you. And as you start the quote-unquote complaint process, go back to your doctor, go back to the hospital, and start from there in an intelligent and thoughtful fashion, and if necessary, escalate from there.
Right. You've said several points that I think need to be reiterated. I think one of the things you don't want to do is what you exactly said is to threaten. And I don't even think the choice of the word attorney should be brought up during this time, because from what I've heard is that kind of shuts down the informal line of communications and puts the whole situation in a defensive mode, and perhaps prematurely, where you can't even have valuable conversations with anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing is, don't run away.
Right.
I've heard from more than a few risk managers and chief medical officers in healthcare organizations that are ethical and will do the right thing after something goes wrong. But sometimes they can't get the family on the phone. They get the phone slammed down, or the family won't come back and meet. And I've talked to many plaintiffs' attorneys about this. So, they'll tell me that's not very smart. I mean, these plaintiffs' attorneys will say, at the minimum, just go back and talk. You don't have to agree to anything. You don't have to sign anything. You don't have to accept anything. But there's no harm in going back and talking to the doctor, to the nurses, to the administration, seeing what they have to say, getting their side of the story, because you might get what you need. You might get the answers and information and the support you need. But if you don't, if you get the door slammed in your face, well, that's good evidence for a lawsuit if that's ultimately where it's going to end up. Can't lose either way.
Right. And I think it's also important for folks to keep documentation and records, so you can't just remember all of this, especially when you're in a heightened emotional state. So it's very important as things are unfolding to keep track of times and people and places and events so that you can help the attorney recreate that if that's where it goes.
Exactly. Doctors and nurses keep detailed records, patients and families too, and then the more specific you can get, all the better, including if you end up in a lawyer's office. They're going to want to see that information. That's what lawyers call evidence,
right.
Or they call it documentation. And if you end up in a lawyer's office, you need to be able to tell a credible, believable story, and it starts with your ability to document and report.
Right. Well, if you're just tuning in, you want to stay with us. This is Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am Pat Rouleau, and we are talking with Doug Wojcieszak, founder of Sorry Works and author of the new book, Did the Doctor Make a Mistake? And we are learning about what we can do when confronted with an adverse patient event. So, Doug, let's talk a bit. We're talking about attorneys. Let's go there for a moment. Attorneys and lawsuits, what is your viewpoint?
Litigation, filing a lawsuit should be the last resort. If you treat this like a true customer service complaint process and you go back to the doctor, you go back to the hospital, and you get nothing but the door slam in your face, or you don't believe the review is credible, you don't believe what they're telling you, you can absolutely go there. And you should never be ashamed or embarrassed about talking to a lawyer. And you should never feel awkward. I'm a good Midwestern boy. I grew up in Cincinnati. I live in St. Louis now, and I've heard more than a number of people in the Midwest as well as other areas of the country say, well, I wasn't raised to talk to lawyers. I don't believe in lawsuits. I don't think that's right. Hey, doctors and hospitals and insurance companies have lots of lawyers, and they're never afraid to talk to a lawyer, nor should you be. If you don't feel the process is working right, or if you just want to have a review of your situation, nothing wrong. The one thing we always tell people, however, because one, have yourself organized before you step into a lawyer's office. Have your story together. Be able to connect the dots and sound intelligent. And the big thing is look for an attorney or a law firm that specializes in medical malpractice, because the field of med mal law is a very specialized field. And a specialist is someone who's going to have the knowledge and resources to be able to give you an honest opinion and if necessary, pursue your case and have the resources to do so.
That is excellent advice. What do hospitals and insurers think about this campaign?
It's interesting. I talk with a lot of risk manager friends, a lot of insurance people friends and colleagues in insurance companies, and they're supportive of it because they know that a couple of reasons. If we're going to do disclosure, not only do we need to educate doctors and nurses, but we need to have a population of patients and families that understand what's going on. But from a broader perspective, they realize that not only do doctors and nurses need help when it comes to dealing with events, patients and families do too. And I think everybody realizes that for far too long, the only advice patients and families have gotten about dealing with a potential medical error is being told to call the number on the back of a phone book. And we can do better than that. There is a time and a place for lawsuit and litigation, talking to a lawyer. And throughout the book and throughout the stuff on our website, we give a lot of good information on how to interact with attorneys. But there's a whole other bunch of information that patients and families need to keep in mind when they're dealing with these events. And there's a process and a way to go about it. And that's what we try to do. We try to educate. It's interesting in the state of Massachusetts, where there's a very big push for disclosure, where the Medical Society, the Hospital Association, and the Bar Association, so the docs, the hospitals, and the lawyers have joined forces to promote disclosure. They've got a whole website out there. It's www.macrmi.info. where it's a whole website dedicated to giving patients and families, as well as doctors and nurses, information about what disclosure and apology should look like and how to best handle situations that go wrong in a hospital or a healthcare setting. Really good stuff.
Thank you for sharing that. Also, I'd like you to share where our listeners can find out more about what you do.
Our website is sorryworks.net, sorryworks.net, and the website has got a wealth of information, and we have a specific button on there it's called for patients and families. The book we've been talking about in this whole campaign, educational campaign for patients and families, is found on that link right there for patients and families at sorryworks.net.
So, Doug, do you have any final words of advice for us today?
Again, treat it like a customer service complaint process. Find an outlet for your anger and grief. And the best thing a lot of people find, it's what you mentioned at the beginning of the show, is get in the patient safety movement and join the patient safety movement. And if the courts and the state medical board and the media won't listen, then find another way to tell your story. Get out there and do the patient safety movement. Find a group or start your own group and try to turn that negative in your life to a positive. And the last thing is, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, is ultimately forgive. Even if you never hear from the doctors or nurses again. I've talked to one too many patients and families that are so enraged by what happened that they chew themselves up in the process. And it's really sad when folks do that. Ultimately, some way, some shape or form, you've got to find a way to forgive and release and move on with your life so that it doesn't take you down, too.
And I agree with that. That's a great piece of advice. Well, to our listeners, I hope you never have to walk a mile in Doug's shoes, but if you do, I know that his booklet will help prepare you for the journey. Again, the book is Did the Doctor Make a Mistake? So thank you, Doug, for all you do, and I hope we can continue this conversation in the weeks to come, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Good talking to you, listeners.
You too, Doug. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Stay in your seat because coming up, we've got emails, moments, and of course, everyone's favorite game, Fear the Wheelchair.
We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast.
Let's spend the next 2 minutes with our resident expert, Daryl Hicks, an infection preventionist who has the answers to all of our questions. Welcome, Daryl.
Good to be here.
People often ask me about the proper cleaning agents to use at home, where we probably don't have C. diff and MRSA floating around. What would you suggest would be a safe cleaning agent?
You want to use the least toxic product that will clean. And there are a lot of good ones if you just read the labels. And just because it says it's a green product, there's a lot of green washing that goes on in it. They haven't met any green product standards, and there are good standards out there. So if we use a good cleaner and microfiber cloth, you can use Dawn dishwashing detergent and do a good job of cleaning your house with that, and can do a good job of soil removal. And with that removing of the soil goes all those bad germs with it. So you've used a very low toxicity product and you've removed the soil, and with it goes those bacteria, viruses, and all that stuff. Now, during the flu season, cold season, you probably do want to use a disinfectant wipe, a Lysol wipe or whatever, but I always challenge my people to read the label, and you want to look for those target organisms on the label, influenza A, influenza B, those kinds of things that during the cold and flu season, you really want to make sure that you're killing and not just spreading around the house.
Right. Daryl, so much information. How can our listeners learn more about you and what you do?
They can visit my website, www.darylhicks.com. So it's Daryl at darylhicks.com, and there's a lot of information on there, and they can order the book there. They can also submit questions to me, and I usually answer those the same day that I get them. If anyone has a particular question they want to submit to me, I will get back to them right away.
Well, thank you so much, Daryl, for sharing this important information with us today. Your book, Infection Prevention for Dummies, is necessary for anyone who wants to promote well-being and prevent infections. Thank you for being here today. I'm sure we're going to have many more questions of you in the future.
Okay, Pat. Thank you very much.
Thanks. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, with the only show in the world that offers patient safety tips served up in a wheelchair, which can only mean one thing, and that it's time to play the game acclaimed by critics, non-critics, and sometimes even self-proclaimed as everyone's favorite game of all time ever.
Fear the wheelchair.
Yes. By now, you've probably heard me talk about how I fear the wheelchairs that grace the front doors of almost every hospital. Patients and visitors get out of their cars and hop into the wheelchair, and I always wonder, where have they been? What have they touched? Then they wheel around the hospital, use the bathroom, sit in waiting rooms, visit patients, all the while picking up additional and deadly hospital bacteria like MRSA, C. diff, a bit of E. coli, and perhaps some candida yeast. And at the end of the day, they're back in their car, leaving the contaminated wheelchair at the front door of the hospital, ready for the next person to climb aboard. This makes the wheelchair a high-touch, highly contaminated vehicle, capable of spreading infections all over the place. So the wheelchair is now this show's representation of all hospital hazards, kind of like our mascot. So here we go, our new favorite game of...
Fear the wheelchair.
Listen as Joe reads some right or wrong statements. Then, even though I can't hear you, shout out your answers along with Bob. Is the statement right? Or is it wrong? Joe?
All right, here we go. Right or wrong. To stand out in a hospital in a positive way, bring photos of yourself and your family.
What do you think about that, Bob?
Well, I think that's definitely right.
Yes, that is one way to show your healthcare staff that you are a real person with a real life and not just another ringing call button. Relationships make the difference.
Right or wrong. If a doctor shows empathy, that means something has gone terribly wrong.
Ooh, what do you think, Bobby?
That may be right.
That's wrong. Empathy is a good thing. Oh, here we go again with the clapping and the wrong answers. I don't know what's going on here, folks, but empathy is a good thing. If a doctor speaks to you with understanding, feeling, and emotion, be sure to reinforce that behavior and say thank you for talking with me like this. I appreciate your saying this. We are all human beings, and it really shouldn't be that difficult to communicate from the heart.
Right or wrong. Long-term care only occurs in a nursing home.
What do you think, Bob?
I'm going to say right.
Well, that's what most people tend to think, Bob, but actually long-term care can happen within the home, assisted living facility, or adult family home, or even a nursing home. Everyone should have some sort of plan for their long-term care, making it an essential part of our life's plan in general.
Right or wrong. Use a low-toxic product to clean your home, such as Dawn dishwashing detergent.
What do you think, Bobby?
I remember that. That one's right.
Right, that is right. And a microfiber cloth. Microfiber picks up and holds the soil better than other rags, and you want to use products that do not contain dangerous chemicals and fumes.
Right or wrong. Patients should refuse to talk with the hospital if a medical mistake happens.
Now what, Bob?
Oh, that's wrong.
You are correct about that. Conversation is a way to maximize your chances to resolve the issue. Communication is key, and both patients and healthcare staff must come together in an attempt to create a common resolution outside of the courthouse. Just another point in favor of relationships.
Right or wrong. The superbug MRSA can live on hairbrushes.
Ooh, what do you think about that, Bobby?
I don't know about that. That may be wrong.
Ooh, no, that is right. And stay tuned, because later in the show, I've got some hair-raising news about this, Bob. It'll make you wish you were bald. Remember, the more you know. Joe's shaking his head. Remember, the more you know, the safer you'll be. And you heard about it here on Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Thanks, guys, for playing everyone's favorite game.
Fear the wheelchair.
You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am Pat Rouleau, where the boys and I are keeping you safe during any healthcare or hospital encounter. Coming up, a brush with danger. Stay in your seat. Show is about empowering you to do something about the quality of healthcare today, and that includes questioning the relationship between AARP and the current administration. Fortunately, there is a resource, an alternative that is fighting to restore the American dream, and that is Generation America. Listen as I spend the next 2 minutes with Russ Richmond of Generation America. Welcome to the show, Russ.
Thank you.
Russ, tell us about the Medicare Advantage disenrollment period. What is that, and what do our listeners need to know about this?
Wow, that's a great question. A lot of people don't even know that this exists and that they have this option and why it's important right now. There's an annual Medicare Advantage disenrollment period that starts January 1 and ends February 15th. And during that period, you have the option of getting out of Advantage and getting into a traditional Medicare supplement program. And why this is important is that everyone's heard about all the funding that has been taken out of Medicare, and a little over $300 million of that total has been taken out of Medicare Advantage. And the Congressional Budget Office and the House Committee on Ways and Means has estimated that over the next 5 years, about half the people who currently have Advantage are going to be getting out because of cuts in benefits and rapidly increasing costs. They're estimating that by 2017, within 5 years, that the rate for Advantage will be $3,400 a year, which is more than most, I'll say, of the current Medicare supplement program. So if you're in good health, Medicare Advantage probably isn't the best place for you to be staying very long.
Well, how can our listeners find out more about this Medicare Advantage disenrollment period, and how can they take part in the plans that you offer?
Talking to our Medicare supplement partner is the answer to that, and that phone number is 855-772-3633, and that is a toll-free number.
And that goes straight to your Medicare supplement partner?
Yes.
Okay. How can we find out more about Generation America, and how can our listeners join?
The best place is generationamerica.org, and right at the top of the page, you'll see the Join Now button, and we offer 1-, 3-, and 5-year memberships. You're a member instantly when you join, and you're given access to the member areas. You will get your voice heard, and you'll be able to take advantage of all these fantastic benefits that members have access to.
Well, thank you, Russ, for joining us today. We look forward to your return next week.
Thank you very much.
Generation America, on the right side for seniors. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org. The current healthcare system depersonalizes the doctor-patient relationship, in which the patient is seen not as a person, but merely as a job to be done cost-effectively. And it's more difficult to form a one-on-one relationship, which promotes the perception of the provider's arrogance. The physician's knowledge places them in a potential position of dominance. Once a physician recognizes this, he or she may become arrogant. That arrogance may show itself as a failure to listen to a patient or family's problems, a lack of respect and good manners towards staff and patients, abusive or critical comments, boastfulness, and an unwillingness to be recognized and questioned. I think we've all recognized these negative traits in some physicians. Where do they come from? Is the behavior hardwired, or is it learned from the wrong type of role models during training? Well, what do you think? Is it arrogance or confidence? Once again, we received lots of interesting emails. Here are some responses. Hey, Joe, will you read some of them for us?
Smart Gal 43 wrote, people whose arrogance is mostly intellectual tend to have little use for emotions.
So I guess we shouldn't hug our doctors. Oh, yeah, we don't want to do that. Think about cross-contamination.
Jeff from Pittsburgh says, I think you can tell the difference between arrogance and confidence in the way it's delivered.
Yeah, you're right, Jeff. Confidence says, I can do that. Arrogance says, I can do it better than you. Arrogance looks to impress, whereas confidence is impressive.
T wrote, I work in a hospital. A doc who is apologetic and humble is just begging for a lawsuit. Arrogance rules.
Oh, KKT, I beg to differ. I think that an honest apology when something goes wrong would avoid some lawsuits.
And finally, Frank from Parma says, my sister is a nurse. She says some doctors' behaviors is the healthcare equivalent of road rage.
Oh, wow, Frank, it sounds like your sister has experience. In dealing with arrogant people on the road, it's best not to engage with it. That could be dangerous. But When a healthcare provider's arrogance stands in the way of your feeling comfortable to even speak or question him or her, that's equally as dangerous. When that happens to me, I respectfully call them out on it and say, you are the expert when it comes to surgery or diagnosis or whatever the situation happens to be, but you are making me uncomfortable by not listening to me or by not answering my questions. Can you help me by explaining whatever it is I need explained? You might not be able to stop arrogance, but you can address it by standing up for yourself and speaking up. And I know that's hard to do, but when you acknowledge another person's authority and then ask for help, it usually softens the difficult attitude. We have a lot more, but little time. So let's continue this radio opinion poll again next week. Arrogance or confidence? You decide. And to balance things out, let's give a rave to a fine young lady from California, Madison Womack, who innocently started a card company that has blossomed into a business that is based on acts of kindness, especially to hospitalized children with terminal illness. Her website is called funkycards.blogspot.com. And rather than me trying to portray her efforts, we have her with us on the phone today. Hello, Madison.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Madison, I met your grandmother when she attended one of my hospital safety presentations in Arizona last year, and she raved about you, and now I know why. Tell us what Funky Cards is all about.
Well, my freshman year, I wanted to play volleyball for a club, but my mom said if I was to come up with a way to raise money that I was going to be able to play. And I just decided to create a card company because I love crafting and art, and it's one of my main passions. And Funky Cards just started from there.
Just kind of evolved. And how old were you when you started that, Madison?
I was 14 at the time.
And then how did it grow from making cards to what you do today?
Well, online there are many websites that have weekly challenges, and I love participating in them. I think they're really great, and they give away prizes. But for me, I wanted what people do to be rewarding, just that they're helping someone else. And so I came up with the idea of the I Feel the Love Project, where every month we have a new participant on my blog, and people from all over the world can send in cards to me, and I will put together a box at the end of the month, like a little care package that I can then send to the recipient. And it's really cool that each month somebody will just be showered with love from people from all around the world.
From people they don't even know.
Yeah.
And how do you select the recipients? When I looked at your website, it seems like most of them are younger children and they have terminal illnesses. Is that correct?
That is. My mom has been a big help with selecting the recipients each month. It started out as one of my teachers from junior high. She was battling cancer, and this is when we thought of this idea. I wanted her to be the first recipient. And from there, my mom has been a big help, but it also is a lot of my followers. They can send requests as to who they want to see be a recipient for the next month.
Oh, I see. So how can our listeners take part? Can anyone send you cards?
Yes, they can. If they go on my website at either funkycards.blogspot.com or ifeeltheloveproject.blogspot.com, there will be frequently asked questions, and they can read through that, and it'll walk them through the steps to be able to participate.
And do they have to be handmade cards? Or
they generally are handmade. They're all from crafters from around the world.
Okay, I think that's cool. So if somebody makes a card and they make it with love from their heart, send it to you, and then you forward it on to recipient, and then our listeners can actually go to your websites and see where they're going and a little bit of information about them. And that's at ifeeltheloveproject.blogspot.com. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Madison, you are a sweetheart. I am so proud of you for what you are doing to help people, and I'm impressed, and I just hope all of our listeners will go to your website, ifeeltheloveproject.blogspot.com, and start getting crafty and make some cards and send them to you. Thank you so much, Madison.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bye-bye. And now for my personal oh moment, and this really did cause me to say oh, as it is a brush with danger. One of our past guests on the show, Dr. Chuck Gerba, a microbiologist from the University of Arizona, mentioned something in passing about MRSA being found on hairbrushes. Well, this caused me to do some research, and it's my job to share all of my little-known stay-safe strategies with you. Here's what I found. We've talked about MRSA. It's a staph infection that's resistant to antibiotics, and thus it's hard to treat. Everyone has bacteria on their skin, including staph, but most of the time it doesn't present a problem. Well, Dr. Gerba said, we were quite surprised how many bacteria were in hairbrushes, and since they're usually in the bathroom, it's not a surprise to find fecal bacteria on them. We even found E. coli in some hairbrushes, which Dr. Chuck Gerba says probably is not any concern with a disease risk, although aesthetically, combing my hair with E. coli is probably not what I want to do. He goes on to say, I was really shocked at how common MRSA was in hairbrushes. Well, personally, I would never have guessed it was on almost half the hairbrushes that he tested. It probably is because MRSA likes to live on your skin and is finding skin to survive longer in hairbrushes. Well, this immediately made me think of beauty salons and barbershops. So here's my top 8 tips. When you enter a salon or a barbershop, look around to see if it's neat and clean. If it doesn't look clean in general, it's time to find a new salon. Look at the restrooms. Are they dirty? Do they lack liquid soap and clean towels? If they do, that means the technicians aren't washing their hands properly between clients. Kind of like that TV show, Tabitha's Salon Takeover. Number 2, make sure the sinks are clean between clients and that a freshly cleaned towel is put under your neck. 3, the salon should wash their robes and towels after every use. Many of them do not. Not only can MRSA survive on fabrics, lice can live on brushes, robes, and towels too. Number 4, all brushes, combs, scissors, and razors have to be sterilized between clients. If they're not properly sterilized and come into contact with bacteria, germs can grow and live on your scalp. The sterilization solution must be changed regularly, and the container should not be overcrowded with combs and brushes. Tip number 5, make sure the stylist doesn't stick his or her fingers directly into styling jars or containers, which can breed bacteria and be transferred to your skin. That's called cross-contamination. Tip number 6, it's important to make sure your hairstylist doesn't have any sores or cuts on his or her hands. Number 7, avoid dirty electric razors. Dermatologists note they commonly see ringworm when electric razors are used. And finally, Dr. Chuck Gerba concludes, you shouldn't share hairbrushes, or at least disinfect them once in a while. Have you disinfected your hairbrush lately? I know I haven't. I haven't even thought about it until now. So here's the tip. To disinfect your brushes, you can find a product called Barbicide at salon supply stores that are open to the public. Just follow the directions on the container. Well, now I know what all of us will be doing after today's show. And be sure to tell a friend, MRSA is a life-threatening bacterium. There's really no need to be subjected to it when all we want is a haircut. Well, folks, today we talked about the importance of relationships, and we learned many ways to appear special to our healthcare providers. And our guest, Doug Wojcieszak from Sorry Works, continued the conversation about keeping the lines of communication open with our doctors and our hospitals, especially if something goes wrong. And we just revealed the little-known secret about MRSA, hairbrushes, and salon and barbershop safety. So if you missed some of today's show, you are living on the edge. Or if you simply want to replay it for yourself or a friend in need, go to the radio link at the speakupandstayalive.com website to listen to today's program. You might want to do that anyway, just to help you remember more of today's revealing information. And listen next week as we continue to entertain while still sharing very important life-saving tips and tools to help you and your loved ones stay safe during any healthcare or hospital encounter. And feel free to send us your questions or comments on any topic pertaining to healthcare and hospital safety, and we will read or answer them next week. That's next Saturday morning, where you can find us in Cleveland, Ohio, from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK, and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW. Or listen live via the internet. Check the speakupandstayalive.com website to find out how. In the meantime, I hope you have a happy and healthy week. I am Pat Rouleau, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters.
The information provided in today's broadcast is for informational purposes only and was not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem or as a substitute for consulting a licensed medical professional. Participating as a program listener, guest, or caller should not be considered medical advice. References to any entity, product, service, website, or source of information should not be considered as an endorsement. If you missed part of today's show or just want to share the information with friends, you can download a copy of the show at speakupandstayalive.com. That's speakupandstayalive.com. Want even more information? Purchase a copy of Pat's book at the Speak Up and Stay Alive website. Once again, it's speakupandstayalive.com.
This is Pat Rulo. When you get a chance, become a friend and like us on Facebook. We're called Speak Up and Stay Alive. Then post your questions and comments on our Facebook wall. We may read them next week. Who else do you know who can benefit from this life-saving information? You can keep your group, club, business, or church safe from hospital hazards. I speak live and in person, too. Our events are fun, fast-paced, interactive, and jam-packed with serious information. Your crowd will love it. Just email me at speakupandstayalive.com or call 440-725-5462. Until next week, remember to ask others to wash their hands. You have to speak up and stay alive. Call me, email me.
I'll survive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Generation America supports Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Generation America, the smart, conservative, and traditional 50-plus membership organization. Generation America cares what their members think about the issues affecting seniors and ensure their voices are heard. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. If you're looking for quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America, on the right side for seniors. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.